I never worry about action, but only about inaction. Well, those aren't my words, nor are they the words of this week's guest, Darren Campbell, but they are the words of Winston Churchill. I, of course, have been listening to The Churchill Factor, How One Man Made History, by the London Mayor Boris Johnson, and I've been listening to it on Audible. That's because Audible.com is this week's sponsor. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/best. That's www.audibletrial.com/best. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So be like Churchill, be active, and get your free audiobook courtesy of Audible.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Wow. I am pumped for this week's Best in the World with Richard Parr. My guest is the 4x100 meters relay Olympic gold medalist from 2004 in Athens. It's Darren Campbell. He also won a silver medal in the 200 meters in the Sydney Olympics in 2000. And we have had an amazing chat. So much to cover with Darren Campbell today, talking about the importance of teams, the importance of parents and his mum in particular. We talk about nutrition. We talk about the state of athletics and doping and what needs to be done to take the sport forward. That is a very interesting part of this podcast, so please listen into that. We talk about coping with failure, and we talk about the success of becoming an Olympic champion. There is so much to cover on this week's episode. I was actually going to use the start of this show to talk about one of my favourite topics, wrestling. I love wrestling, if you didn't know that already. Yes, all right, I may not have grown up, but I wanted to talk about WWE's Royal Rumble, but I'm just going to get to it with Darren Campbell this week because there's so much to cover. I think I'll definitely get him on the show again because I had a whole list of questions which I couldn't even get to because he's such an interesting guy and he's passionate with it too and positive. And that's what we love on this show. We love positivity. So if you want to know about my thoughts on the Royal Rumble, my Rumble rumblings, so to speak, then go to my website, richardparr.net. I'm going to put up a blog post and give my thoughts. I know it's a few days after the show, but the Royal Rumble is such an important event that I'd love to get my thoughts out to you, my listeners and wrestling fans. Hopefully some of you are. Of course, if you want to get in touch with me about any of our future guests or any of my blogs or anything else, as well as the website, you can get in touch with me at Richard_Parr. But come on, we don't want to hear from me anymore. Let's hear from one of the best episodes I've had so far on the Best in the World. Let's speak to Darren Campbell.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
So Darren Campbell, welcome to the Best in the World with Richard Parr. Now, there's so much I want to cover with you, but the first thing I want to say is I've literally come out of the gym, and I know you do work with pro athlete supplementation. What exactly should I be putting into my body right now?
You should be taking the MGF1, which is the protein which will allow you to recover. That's the product you should be taking right this minute as we speak, within the hour after training.
What would that do for my body, Darren? What exactly would that do now?
It will really aid with the recovery. It's got protein obviously in there, and it's what a lot of the pro footballers, athletes use obviously proteins are a very important part of any sports person's diet. And it'll just help replenish what the muscles have just burnt up as soon as possible. And then in the morning, you shouldn't wake up feeling aches and pains, which is the whole point of it. It's funny you mentioned PAS. I actually set that up with the nutritionist that looked after me throughout my career. And it's been going for 10 years now, and we do have it over in the Doha.
Oh, fantastic. So I'll have to try and get some of that while I'm here.
Yes, definitely.
So with your nutritionist, what would you say you learned the most in your training career about nutrition, about eating? What's the one tip you would give any young athlete?
I think the biggest thing for me was understanding my body, understanding what weight I was able to compete at my optimum. Before I met John Williams, who's my business partner and is the nutritionist for the Welsh national rugby team, he was the British Lions nutritionist. I didn't really have a clue about products, how they could benefit me, how they could help me with recovery. And just a chance meeting one day, I was in like a health food shop. They had a few different proteins and stuff, and I just walked up to this guy, John, and said, is there anything you could advise me? I do a bit of sprinting, and just from that moment, the attention to detail on my diet became very, very important. At major championships, I used to race at 80 kilograms. My walk-around weight's about 95, so you can imagine the attention to detail throughout the season in getting my weight right for the major championships. The focus was always about going to major championships and being in the best form and being able to challenge for medals. And I guess during the season on the circuit, I wouldn't really focus on the money. I'd use those races to perfect what I needed to do at major championships. I tended to make lots of mistakes on the circuit, but come the moment at major championships, my mind was always fully focused. And I was always in the best shape. I was always in the best shape I could be. A lot like boxers. Boxers obviously have to make weight, but for me, I just felt it creates that discipline. And you've always got a target that I had to achieve every season. So it meant I couldn't be sloppy.
Were there any vices which caught you up, such as the odd hamburger or ice cream or anything like that, or were you really disciplined in it?
Initially, I wasn't, and I think that's where I gained a lot of respect for John. Really that he cared about how I performed. I remember the one occasion I hadn't followed the meal plan, and I hadn't followed the whole plan, and I hadn't lost the body fat that I was meant to lose, and he just lost it. He just shouted at me and was like, why am I wasting my time with you if you're not going to take it serious? And I often say to him, that's when my respect for him went to a different level, because the team of people that I had around me when I was competing as an athlete, most importantly, they had to care about me and care about how I performed. And he just showed me then how much he cared. And to be honest, that was the last time I slacked. Never slacked again. No vices. What I would say is, so at the end of every season, once I'd finished, I'd arrive back in the country from the championship, hopefully with a medal in my pocket, and I'd drive down the M4 and I'd stop off and find a convenience store and buy a box of cherry bakewells, and that was my treat.
Oh, wow.
I'd go crazy. I'd go crazy with it being the end of the season, but that was my treat for, being dedicated, being focused, and sticking to what I had to do.
That's amazing, and I think that's an amazing story of how you met John in that chance moment, and he was able to become such an integral part of your team. Who else would you say was part of your team which really helped you achieve everything that you were able to achieve?
Many people. It's often difficult to mention every single person, but my masseur was very important to me, John Sales. Unfortunately, he passed away in my final season, and pretty much, made up my mind I think once he passed away, it made up my mind that it was time for me to stop. He just knew my body. Again, another chance meeting in South Wales. He did a bit of acupuncture, which seemed to help me. He also knew about massaging and stuff like that. And I always felt it was very important that whoever was I guess, whoever's hands were going to be in contact with my body, they had to almost feel like healing hands. And with him, I always just felt better after receiving treatment from him. And I think from the first time he treated me, I'd just actually gone back to athletics because I'd retired for a couple of years. And he massaged me, and I just said, look, if I'm able to get back to the top, would you be interested in traveling on the circuit with me? And he said, yeah. I think the year that I won the European Championships in 1998, the first time, he started traveling with me that season. And he became my masseur and traveled with me. And then I had fantastic training partners as well. Paul Gray, he was massive for me in 2004. He didn't make the British team for the Olympic Games, but I paid for him to come out to the holding camp, and he trained with me. And I just always felt it was important to have the right people around me that could keep me relaxed and keep me focused.
Yeah, it's amazing how many different athletes I've spoken to on this show, whether they're in a team sport or an individual sport, just how important their team is around them. It's really interesting. And obviously one of your main successes was in the relay. How important was it for you to get on well with the other runners in your relay team, or did it only really, because obviously there's four of you, did it only really matter of who you're collecting the baton from and giving it to, or did all four of you have to be really tight for you to have that success?
I would say 2004 in Athens was the tightest we ever were. We hadn't had individually, we hadn't had a good Olympic Games. The media pretty much said we were a disgrace. And I think when you're going up against the Americans and they've got four guys who are faster than you, the only way you're really going to challenge them is by becoming a team. In Athens, I think we took the team spirit to a whole different level. There was the utmost belief in each other, the maximum respect in each other. And to be honest, after the team meeting that we had the day before the heat, I knew the team spirit was on a totally different level than it had been ever before, and I just had this feeling that we would win. Nobody else obviously believed that was possible, but yeah, I think when you get a team who every individual is on the same page, amazing things can happen. You don't have to be the best at that point. Every team member was important. Even the guys that didn't run, they became important. And I think what we achieved in Athens couldn't have happened without having an unbelievable team spirit. And we did. And yeah, we got the highest award.
Yeah, amazing success. Gold in the 4x100 meters. You had a hamstring injury going into the games. Did you have any concerns with the injury that you could cause some serious damage?
I tore my hamstring on my final training session, on my final run before I was meant to leave the holding camp in Cyprus. I was meant to leave the holding camp in Cyprus the following day to fly into Athens. And unfortunately, I tore my hamstring. I remember lying on the track and I was in tears, and Linford Christie, my coach, who was a massive part of my success, was in tears, and a doctor who went on to work for Chelsea and works in professional football clubs. He was the team doctor. I remember him coming over, and obviously, he wasn't pleased. And I don't know, these guys, especially Brian English, I just remember saying to him, will I be all right? I had the scans and that, and I said, will I be all right? And he went, yeah. He came to my wedding and he said to me, I probably shouldn't have run on that day. He didn't tell me until afterwards, but he knew in my eyes that it almost didn't matter what he said. I was always going to try and give myself the best chance. So in my mind, I just dealt with it how I've heard people talk about when they've fallen off a horse. The important thing is to get back on the horse as soon as possible, and that's how I dealt with it with regards to my hamstring. I thought, right, I've got to go out for the first round of the 100 meters just to see how it feels and to know that it's healing. I think I may have run 10.4 or 10.3, and I was like, okay, that's all right. And then by the time I ran the 200, it had a few more days to heal, and I managed to make it into the semi-final. And I knew Athens was going to be my last Olympic Games, and I just knew I would do everything in my power to give myself the opportunity to try and win a gold medal. And as I say, in the end, the last chance for that to happen was going to be in the 4x1 relay. And we needed that team spirit, we needed that belief, and we had that, and everything aligned and everything worked out right, and we became Olympic champions. But for me, it was just a massive emotional roller coaster. But I think what I learned from that is just never give up. Just never give up. Keep fighting. Keep believing. And anything in life is possible. And by the end of it, it probably took me 6 years to believe that we'd actually won Olympic gold.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing story, and of course now you do motivational speaking, and I believe you've done a speech today. I don't want you to give away too much because I still want people to book you. But what do you think's the what do you think's the one principle that people aren't doing that could ultimately help them achieve their goals and their dreams?
I think people stop dreaming. I think you set a dream, you set a target, and because you set a dream, you set a target in your mind, you almost feel it's going to happen a certain way. From the age of 12, I wasn't, I guess, given much hope from teachers and stuff like that in school that I was going to achieve anything in my life. I was pretty much told I was a no-hoper, I'd never amount to anything, probably spend the majority of my life in jail, if not worse, dead. So that's how my life was written. But I watched Carl Lewis in the 1984 Olympics in LA win 4 Olympic gold medals. I'd been running at that point for about 4 years, and I kind of realized where this running thing could take me. And I think from that moment, I started practicing my autograph, and I'd tell my teachers in school, one day I'm going to go to the Olympic Games. And obviously they laughed and said, kids like you don't go to the Olympic Games. So it's easy to set a dream, but the difficult part is to keep going. From setting that dream to actually achieving it and winning Olympic gold, it took 20 years. And as I say, you never know how it's going to go. You have set in your mind how you think it's going to go. But I would just say to anybody, just don't give up on your dreams. Even if you only get halfway there, I'm sure that will fill your heart with a lot of joy. Winning Olympic silver was unbelievable, and if Olympic silver would have been all I was meant to have, then that was enough of a reward. It's just following your dreams, keep going, and keep persevering.
I bet one of those autographs is now worth quite a lot of money that you signed as a kid. I hope one of your teachers or one of your friends has kept it.
Probably not, because that's a whole different story in itself. Up until the age of 13, my name was actually Darren Grant, and I changed my name when I was 13 to Campbell, to my mum's surname, because my mum and dad never married. And I met my dad for the first time when I was about 12, 13, and I just said to my mum, I want to change my name, and my mum was like, why do you want to do that? And I was like, well, Mum, one day I'm going to be famous, and I don't want my dad to be sat watching me on TV and try and take any credit for what I'm about to do. So if I change my name to Campbell, he'll have to explain why we've got different surnames. So look, I didn't have much in life growing up, but I did have a mum who was very inspirational. I watched her do 2-3 jobs to try and give me and my sister the best opportunity to achieve in life. And those kind of things became instilled in me, that, anything I wanted to achieve in life, I would have to work hard. And I was always willing to do that. So, but I guess she instilled a lot of belief. She always used to tell me, Darren, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. So those words always ring in my head, even when I maybe think, can I do this? I just know if I've practiced enough, then I have to have faith that it'll work out right.
Yeah, mums are normally the best player to have on your team. They're normally the captain.
Yeah, they are.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
We'll be back with more from Darren in just a moment. It was really interesting to hear that his nutritionist really pushed him into some really good habits. And that is one of the things I want to learn more about. And in fact, I've just downloaded the audiobook, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It's read by Mike Chamberlain. I've only just started it, so I can't tell you too much about it, but from what I've heard so far, it seems pretty interesting, and hopefully I can incorporate more habits into my everyday life. And I've been able to do that with our sponsors, Audible. And you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/best. That's www.audibletrial.com/best. Of course, it's for the best in the world. And let's hear from another one of the top athletes on the planet, Mr. Darren Campbell.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
So we spoke about your success, but I wanted to talk about the 1996 relay. When the baton was dropped. How did you feel about that? And in many ways, did it help shape your career for the later years?
Most people don't even realise I dropped the baton in 1996. It's a funny thing, and it kind of shows you how life can spin around, flip on its head, and you go from such despair to such joy. And I guess if I'd have really thought about it, I was always going to get my success in the 4x1 relay because of what happened in 1996. I have to take full responsibility. I went to that Olympic Games. I'd literally just come back to the sport. I trained for maybe 6-7 months and I managed to make it to the 96 Olympics and was selected as part of the relay team. And I probably took it for granted. And when you take things for granted in life, sometimes you get hit with something that questions everything you are, everything you're about, everything you believe. And I think at that moment it would have been easy to go, why has this happened to me? But ultimately it happened to me because I wasn't focused. I enjoyed the Olympic Village. I enjoyed the McDonald's in the Olympic Village a little bit too much. I partied in the nightclub in the Olympic Village. I borrowed golf buggies that were meant for the VIPs. So yeah, I wasn't focused, and I learned a massive lesson. When your dream feels so important to you, you mess it up like that, you kind of end up at the crossroads, and you only really have two options. You can turn and run away and hide, or you can come back and show people that you're not a disgrace. And for me, what happened in 96 molded what was achieved throughout the rest of my career, if I'm totally honest. And yeah, if there was one bit of advice I'd give to any sports person, never lie to yourself. When it's your fault. And when, there's nothing you could have done about it. And then on that occasion, it was totally my fault. I didn't prepare properly. And in return, I failed. That's how it works. So, from that moment, I always prepared properly, and I always made it my focus to be in the best shape that I could be in major championships.
And you clearly learnt from that mistake, but obviously there was another huge disappointment which would happen in your career, as you would have success with the gold medal at the 2002 European Championships and 2003 World Championships. You got silver, and they were both taken away due to Dwayne Chambers testing positive for banned substances. Obviously, that must have hurt. How does it still feel now?
I'm fine with it, to be honest with you. As much as possible, unless there's a lesson to learn, I don't dwell on the past. And, I speak to Dwayne now, and it's a mistake that he will live with for the rest of his life. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't change that, but that's a feeling and emotions that he will have to go through. And I think what I have now is empathy, understanding, and I feel for him, because I know if he had the opportunity to do everything again, he wouldn't do it the same way. I think it's easy to make mistakes when you're a young person, and you kind of don't understand the ramifications that might have on your future. And I think now that he's got kids and stuff like that, he regrets it. So for me, there's no animosity, there's no anger, because anger's not good for your heart or your soul. So it's important that you let things go as quickly as possible. And as I say, I feel for him, because he wishes he could turn back the clock, but he can't. And that's the unfortunate thing. So look, when it's all said and done, it's just medals. And I say to people, medals don't define you, and it doesn't define the person that you become. I feel very fortunate and blessed that I've won medals, but they don't define the person I am.
And of course, the world of athletics has had a lot of problems in the last year, with the report of state-sponsored doping in Russian athletes, and they've been banned right now. We don't know whether it will be until Rio. What do you think athletics needs to do to improve their image and to step forward? Do you think that Sebco's the right man to do that? I'm
at the point where, if I'm honest, it's not about whether Sebco's the right man. I think that's for him to qualify whether he is or he isn't. And I think the focus now has to be on the sport. He is the man at the helm, and unless he wakes up and decides he's not the right man, then he is going to be the right man as far as he's concerned. So, look, I think it's the time and the moment where everybody needs to come together. If you love the sport, then we need to come together and decide what's right for the sport. The sport has a fantastic opportunity to cleanse itself. There's so many things and rumours that I've heard throughout the sport, and obviously I've seen in the sport, and I just think now's not the time to hide anything. No more sweeping under the carpet. Transparency is important. If we're going to gain the public's confidence in what they witness at major championships, then we have to do things right this time. So much has been said in the past about banning athletes for life if they're caught taking drugs and stuff. And I think, a statement like that is what the sport needs. No tolerance anymore. No understanding, no protecting the rights of drug cheats, nothing like that, because, what's come out in these reports, it's very upsetting to think that people protected athletes who were cheating, nations who were cheating. That's disappointing. I think the IAAF right now are very fortunate that no athletes brought a lawsuit out on them, because, if the public feel cheated, imagine how the clean athletes feel. That's all I'll say.
The problem is this summer we've got the Rio Olympics, and there will be people watching who are gonna doubt whether what they are watching is legitimate, and I think that's something they've got to really try and clear up. Now, I did see in an article last year that you said you wouldn't encourage kids to compete in athletics. I don't know if that was phrased correctly or whether it's taken out of context. But
my children.
Your children. Do you still believe that?
Well, okay. With now what you know, and now what everybody knows, would you encourage yours? So I made a statement that was a year ahead of its time, because how can anybody say to me they'd encourage their kids to take part in athletics, knowing what you now know?
Yeah. So
now, if the sport gets cleaned up, I wouldn't have a problem with my children taking part in the sport, because it's a fantastic sport. It's a sport that has taught me so much. But whilst everybody was sweeping stuff under the carpet, there's no way I wouldn't be responsible if I encouraged. It's not that I would discourage, but I've got an 11-year-old son who plays football, and every time he said to me, "Oh, Dad, I want to go to the track and start training," I go, "Oh, just concentrate on your football for now." So look, if he was adamant that's what he wanted to do, then I would take him. I understand how important dreams are, and if he said, "Dad, it's my dream," there's no way I would stop him. But with what I knew, and now with what's come out, that's why I made that statement.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Because what happened was always going to happen. You can't sweep stuff under the carpet forever. That's impossible. That's impossible. The truth always comes out in the end. So the rumors and the different stuff that I heard, look, they eventually came out. So the comment that I made was, as a parent, I'm a parent. When it comes to my children, I'm a parent and I'm a guardian, and I'm meant to take care of them as best as possible. So if I know more than they know, then as I say, there's no way I could fully encourage it. But if it was what they wanted to do, I wouldn't stop them. Because if that's their dream, I would have to tell them the pitfalls and tell them the warnings and tell them what my mum told me. My mum told me, the day I feel I need to take drugs to be the best, stop. She said it's not that important. And that's always run out in my head. It isn't that important when it's all said and done. Yes, someone will come first, someone will come second, someone will come third, but athletics has given me everything I have. The life that I have is because of athletics. So I don't hate the sport. The problem is I love the sport, and I want more young people to experience the things I've experienced from the sport. It's something that can change your life, But yes, with all that corruption and different stuff going on, yeah, I wouldn't have felt right saying to my kids, encouraging it. As I say, I wouldn't discourage it, but I wouldn't have put my heart and soul into making them be a fantastic athlete.
Okay. Well, you clearly love the sport. It's clearly been good to you in some of your successes. Is there anything you've learnt from your sprinting career that you still use in your everyday life? Are there any habits or rituals that you still use every day?
I wouldn't say I use any of the rituals, but definitely the things that I learned as an athlete, I now utilize in my business. I utilize in the TV work and the radio work that I do. As an athlete, it was attention to detail, especially as a sprinter. You've got 10 seconds, so any mistake you make in that 10 seconds will mess up everything you've been working for. So as a sprinter, the attention to detail becomes very important. The mindset that you have and you need to have is very important. I'm a pessimist, I'm an optimist.
I was going to say you sound much more optimistic than pessimistic.
Yeah, long day. Yeah, I'm an optimist more than a pessimist, and I always try and see the positive. And I think that's so important. Look, life throws many different things at you, but in that there's always somebody worse off than you. So it's important that you find positives, and finding positives keeps you going on. There's lots of things that have happened in the 10 years of the business some have been positive, things have been negative, but it's important that I stay focused on what we're trying to achieve, and that's how it was as an athlete. You're constantly trying to stay positive, whether you've had a bad training session or not. You have to think in your mind that tomorrow will be the best training session you've ever had. It can change that quickly, and that's whether it's business or sport.
Well, Darren, I absolutely love your positivity. I'm sure my listeners will as well, and they've probably learned a lot. If we want to follow you on Twitter or know about your motivational speaking, give us a little wrap of what you're up to and how we can get in contact with you, Darren.
Okay, my Twitter is @Campbell Darren. To be honest, with the motivational speaking, I tend to do it to teachers and school children. It was one of the promises that I made the night before I won Olympic gold in my prayers, that I would only ever use the gold medal for good things to try and motivate young people. So, with the motivational speaking, you'd probably have to find me through my agent, which is enough respect. But, I'm very fussy about the speaking that I do, if I'm totally honest, because it's important that I fulfill the promise I made. I feel very blessed and honoured to even have an Olympic gold medal, to have any medal. Just to be an Olympian is a very special thing. So I really do try and use that in the right way and in a positive way.
Well, Darren, this has been an absolutely fantastic interview. Really appreciate your time. Darren Campbell, thanks for being the best in the world. Thank you.
No problem.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Absolutely superb chat there with Darren Campbell. Really good to get his perspective on a whole load of topics. If you like this episode, please tell your friends. Please share it on Twitter. Link it on Facebook. Send an email. Carry a pigeon. Maybe the plastic cups with the string in between, and throw it to someone and say, "Have you heard the Best in the World podcast? Why don't you listen to it? The episode with Darren Campbell's really good." You don't have to put on that funny voice. I just think that's the noise it makes when you talk in a plastic cup. Come on, trust me. You go speak in a plastic cup. That's what it sounds like. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, go to Richard_Parr. That's PARR. And also head to the website richardparr.net. Next week, I am going to have my first cricketer on the show. Stay close to my social media, stay close to my website for a little clue of who it might be. But of course, if they're on the show, there'll be a world champion of some sort, because this is the best in the world. But until then, I'll speak to you next week, next Wednesday, on the Best in the World.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.